Today we're talking about 8 common mistakes that are made in Warhammer 40k Warpforge. So the first thing is a lot of new players, when they jump in, they're gonna go on to the campaign. If we look on here, for example, they're going to immediately open up a wild card, like it could be a legendary if they bought the premium campaign, and they're going to go straight into the collection, and you're immediately going to start looking at what can you spend that wild card on. And I think one of the common mistakes is that you end up spending that and then actually drawing that card either through a pack, or later on when you get towards the end of the campaign you're going to get 2 legendaries, for example. You can also pick up epics and rares along the way, and often you'll end up getting a duplicate, and you'll really kick yourself because you'll be planning and thinking, I really wish I get this extra legendary, and you end up getting 2 of the same. Similar with epics. So right now, for example, I am working on the Eldar. So if I show you my collection, and you can see up here I've got 2 epics and my legendary still unspent. So real common mistake, people are spending those before actually figuring out what they're going to acquire from the collection as they play. So play your campaign out, wait till you finish the campaign and get the legendary before you then spend any of your epics and legendaries, and that way you'll actually be quicker in getting the deck, like a competitive deck that you want to play. Okay, mistake number 2 is also to do with the campaign. So if we look on the campaign here, so the second mistake that people make is, and I did this with the Necrons, you can see here on my Necrons, I went and opened this card, and then I went and opened this card, and then I went and opened this, because it actually only cost I think the 200 reward points and then 400 here, so they're quite cheap to open. The reason why that's a mistake is because that's actually slowing down the time that it's going to take you to actually get to the end of the campaign, which is where your legendary is. So on the end here, you're going to basically get, and this is the same on for every faction, you're going to get, if you've bought the premium campaign, you'll get a random legendary card, and then you'll get a legendary wild card. So that's 2 legendaries that you'll be able to pick up at the end. And so what you really want to do is make like a beeline for that end game. So if I show you my orcs, for example, you can see I kind of learned, and this way I've just chosen a path, and I've just carried on, and then I've gone up here up to the top. So you just choose one path, one direction, to get essentially make like a beeline for the legendaries. Now once you've opened the legendaries, you can go back, and then you can kind of spend your reward points efficiently and say, okay, I'm going to pick up packs here, I'm going to pick up packs there. That's also another mini mistake, I think, is not prioritizing packs. I think you're much better off prioritizing packs than you are, for example, a green wildcard. So try to prioritize packs and try to make like a beeline for your legendaries, and then you can always go back and redo parts of the campaign. The third mistake that I think people commonly make is around spending crystals. So if we go and look in the shop, every day, every 24 hours, the shop refreshes, and you can see you can spend crystals. And I think it's a real trap to be buying cards, especially common cards, for like 100 at a time, or rare cards. What I would suggest is that you save your crystals, and after a couple of weeks you'll have enough crystals to buy yourself a legendary that you really want. The only exception I would say is, like, if you're planning on just playing one faction and you really are in a rush, like I think there is a consideration for picking up an epic. Like if you really need an epic to finish off the deck and you want to get into playing it, then sure, go ahead and buy yourself an epic, especially if you've kind of accumulated quite a lot of crystals. But honestly guys, I really think that one of the big mistakes is wasting crystals on cards that you're ultimately going to draw from packs. You are going to get these cards. What's much rarer in getting is actually the legendaries, so really save your crystals and don't make that mistake. What is the 4th mistake? Okay, the 4th mistake is actually one to do with gameplay, and in a nutshell, the timer in this game completely sucks. Alright, so the big mistake that I've made lots of times is trying to think through the turns too much and thinking about the next turn and how my opponent's going to react, and before you know it, the 10-second countdown has happened, and I've kind of completely failed to attack with a unit or play a card that I was planning on playing, and just get caught out. So just to be warned, anyone who's played other CCGs like I have, you're probably used to kind of really using your time to think through. In this game, the timer absolutely sucks and you will get caught out by it. So, you know, you just need to kind of like not overly rely on the timer and make sure you get your plays in. The fifth common mistake in Warhammer 40k Warpforge is actually the game just got released very recently onto Android and iPhone, and when it did, I got very, very confused, because if I take you to the home screen, what I didn't realise, if you click on settings up here and go to account, you actually have to set up an account there, and you have to put your email in and put your password in. And I didn't actually realise that because I downloaded from Steam, I've got a Steam account, I didn't realise that I hadn't actually created an account for this. So when I was trying to log in on my phone, I actually realised that I couldn't log in on there because I didn't actually have an account, so I didn't know what to put in. So it sounds really obvious and I feel really dumb for saying this, but actually just make sure you go into settings and have actually created a game account. Sixth most common mistake is that this game is very tempo orientated. So what I mean by that is, especially when you're new to the game and perhaps you're playing a lot of beginner cards, I think the best way to play it is to make sure that you build your deck in a way that's going to give you a really good early game curve. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when you've got 2 mana, you're sort of spending 2 mana. When you've got 3 mana, you're spending 3 mana. When you've got 4 mana, you're spending 4 mana. I think they call it energy actually in this game, not mana. So you're spending that 4 energy and then 5, etc, etc. This game is very tempo orientated, so one of the common mistakes is to look at a card and go, oh, look at this card, it's like an 8 drop and it's got these monster stats, and actually it sits in your hand for 6 turns where you could have had a card that you could have played and you can actually play it because you don't have the mana. So a real common mistake that is, don't get too sucked into these really big expensive cards. Like, really think about your curve and make sure that you've got enough cards early on to play on curve. Seventh biggest mistake that people make is is that there is actually a meta to the game. So when you first jump into the game, you have really 2 ways of picking which faction you're going to start building first. One, you might be a really big 40k fan like I am, and you might have a favourite faction, or you might kind of like have an idea about, okay, I really want to collect these cards because I like the look of them or something like that. That's really cool. If that's your motivation and your incentive, then brilliant, because ultimately, it's your collection, right? But if you're actually interested in like having a good deck and kind of you're conscious that in other CCGs it's quite hard to get the really good cards, like you want to make more efficient decisions. And one of the mistakes that people make is like jumping in and then realizing halfway through that faction's not very good. Now, I feel bad about saying this, but like right now in November, Ultramarines are definitely the best faction, and I would say that Eldar and Necrons are very, very evenly matched in kind of second place. Right now, Tyranids are quite struggling as a chaos. Probably Orcs are somewhere in the middle. So like, just bear that in mind, because if you jumped in with, say, Tyranids and then you realise that you're just losing to Marines all the time, it can be a bit disheartening. So actually do a little bit of research, figure out like what the meta is, and it's not just the meta, but it's also the style of gameplay. You might invest all your money or your time into a faction and realise actually, even though you like the lore or you like the look of the cards, you realise actually from a gameplay perspective it's not really doing it for you, and you kind of wished you'd gone down a road with like a different faction, for example. I would say Ultramarines are a really good start because they don't rely on legendaries too much, and they sort of teach you the basics of the game. They can kind of do everything, but that aside, like, just figure out, try and understand a little bit about what do each of the factions kind of bring to the table. I might do another video on that, and then kind of choose something that's going to suit your playstyle. So last but not least, the 8th common mistake that I think people make when starting the game is around daily missions. So when you look at your mission, you'll get your daily missions that come in here, and it might say something like, you need to play 4 dark packs. So one of the ways you can do that is, even if you're not, for example, that's a chaos ability. So even if you're not playing chaos, you can go into play and you can go into practice mode, and then you can just select chaos, And the Chaos Absolute deck is brilliant for the packs, by the way, just a little hint there. So you could click on this. Now, most people know this, so you can use this practice mode to kind of quickly get your daily missions, which obviously unlocks points so that you can unlock more cards for your campaign. But the common mistake that I think people do is they do this really inefficiently. So if you've only, for example, got 2 more dark packs that you've got to play, you don't have to play the whole game. Okay, so you can actually start the game and then turn 2 or 3, you play like those 2 dark packs, spells that you need to play, and then you can immediately resign from the match and you will have achieved your daily mission. So you can do it much more efficiently in getting your daily missions by just basically figuring out exactly how long you need to play for, and then just kind of don't try to win the game, just try and actually achieve the mission and then just resign out of the game. So there you go, guys, that's 8 common mistakes that people make making the game. I reckon if you pay attention to those, you're going to have a much more effective and fun start to the collection. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you liked about this video and what other content you'd like to see. Until next time, take it easy.